Alrighty, so I wanted to talk about this new AOT banner that is coming out on Tuesday for Global. If you're in my time zone, I guess it's technically like Monday night into Tuesday morning for EST. But I am planning on summoning. I know that there's been a lot of, criticism about this update. A lot of the characters and stuff like that are mediocre, which is understandable. So you've probably heard about it, you've probably been keeping up with it. But if you haven't, we're going to be going over, the banner, the new characters, the old characters, and sort of my opinions on if you should be summoning. We're going to break it down into free-to-plays and light spenders, because obviously if you're a whale or a heavy spender, you're probably going to buy the characters' outfits and, spend money to, get their ult levels higher and stuff like that regardless, so it doesn't really matter what I say in that scenario. So for the banner itself, it's honestly, every collab banner, it normally is very, very bad. I don't think this is any exception. The only, sort of silver lining here is that we do get Awakened Roxy on this thing, which I think is really good because all of these characters are going to be for the human team, except for maybe the green SSR Aaron and possibly the blue Aaron, which is the new one as well. So I think that she can be kind of helpful because she's very helpful for the human team, which I think is kind of the idea behind this collab. It's basically all humans and then a little bit of giant stuff. So for free-to-plays, I would say it's like a 90% chance that you should skip the banner. The silver, or the 10% chance that you might want to summon is like if you think that the characters could be fun, if you like AOT, completely understandable. I'm not going to tell you to not summon for a character that you want and you might have fun with, because at the end of the day, it is a game. I want you to have fun playing the game. Obviously, these characters aren't like meta-breaking, meta-defining units or anything like that. The Demon King is still in full force, and he is going to stay on top for the foreseeable future. So neither of these characters really helps out too much against Demon King. I think Levi has the better chance just because of the fact that he actually has an Infect card, which can help against the Tarmiel Link and everything, and he actually does seem to do some pretty good damage, while Aaron, on the other hand, is very hit or miss. I've seen him do some pretty good damage, and then I've seen him do some very bad damage, so I haven't seen him do anything incredibly impressive. I'll be honest, I haven't watched the most content or anything like that on these new characters because I would like to experience them a little bit for myself, but I have been keeping up with it to a decent extent. The old characters are going to be very badly rated. There's not going to be the greatest chance to pull these characters, and at the end of the day, they did buff their stats, but they did not change anything on the card end of these characters, which is a huge miss. Not that the cards that these characters have are, like, overly bad, but some of them are pretty bad. Like Aaron, for example, he now has a Holy Relic that gives him 2 Ultimate Move Gauge Orbs, or I think it's 3 Ultimate Move Gauge Orbs at the very beginning of the game. So it's really easy to get him to his ultimate so he can transform, which means that the 2 cards that he has in his human form are basically going to be either not used or you're just going to throw them out of your hand so that way you can get ultimate move gauge orbs, so that way you can, draw his ultimate or whatever. But you might even just move the cards so that way you get the ultimate and then you can use those cards once you transform. So it basically just makes his regular human cards almost obsolete and like never going to be used. While Mikasa, on the other hand, has become a PvE character because of her relic. I know that that upsets a lot of people. It is unfortunate, but they have this trend of making at least one character out of the lineups for collabs a PvE unit at this point, and I guess they just didn't want to make either of the new characters PvE characters, so they ended up just opting out and making one of the older characters a PvE character. Obviously, that does kind of suck because Mikasa was pretty cool, and I was kind of hoping that she would be kind of fun and everything, and I genuinely think that she could still be pretty cool. For obviously she is a human team buffer for PvE only, so that is kind of weird. She does work in the sub slot, which is kind of cool. I don't know, I'm gonna try to mess around with her a little bit and see if I can get some decent use out of her, but at that point you don't even really need to buy a whole lot of outfits or anything because you're probably going to be either using her in the sub slot, or PvE content isn't normally that crazy, and she's locked out of Demonic Beast, so most of the stuff you're not even going to have to worry about having high CC for anyway. Levi, on the other hand, has probably the best chance of being an okay unit out of the old character lineup, but even then, he's still going to be pretty squishy. His damage isn't going to be anything over the top. He does have a guaranteed crit hit whenever you attack the lowest HP enemy, which is pretty cool, but obviously, he's just kind of old. So there is going to be that little bit of hindrance there. So the two new characters, of course, I think they have a lot of potential. I think Aaron is going to be a little bit lackluster right now, and potentially if they plan on doing more human or giant stuff in the future, or I mean potentially human as well, because he does work for both sort of races, he could be better whenever new stuff comes out, while Levi, on the other hand, is actually pretty good right now, but he's not like over the top crazy insane. They did buff these characters a little bit like the day or two after they came out on JP, so there's that, of course. But just note, as a free-to-play player, you are not going to be able to buy any of their UR costumes. They do this really stupid thing where collab characters come out, and then you are not going to be able to buy any of their UR costumes. Unfortunately, I can't really show you the Demon King. I was hoping that they would still have the like event lineup for him, but yeah, all of the UR costumes for the collab characters are unfortunately going to be locked behind paywall, so you have to spend real money to buy them, which means that you're probably not going to be able to get them as a true free-to-play player, and if you are a light spender, buying a lot of costumes at one time gets really pricey, so I can completely understand if you maybe only want to invest in the new characters, or, whatever the case may be, but if you had to buy costumes for all four of the old ones and the new ones, it would get pretty, it would rack up very fast. So for free-to-play players, I would say that it's probably not worth summoning for. You're not going to be able to get the most use out of the characters because you're not going to be able to buy their costumes and stuff like that, and at the end of the day, I mean, the human team has potential in the future, and the giant team has potential in the future, probably less so than the humans, because at least humans are pretty runnable right now, whereas the giants are maybe not good, but like you might be able to squeak out a couple of wins here or there, depending on your DN plays, but yeah, I don't know. I think it really depends on the next couple of characters that come out, maybe the next LR unit that comes out. We will kind of have to wait and see there. But the new characters, on the other hand, I don't know. They're really interesting on paper, to say the least. For light spenders, I would say that if you want to grab a copy of these characters while they're around and maybe grab a couple of costumes for potential future use, you definitely could. But I would say that even then, for like light spenders, it's like a 50-50 maybe at best, if you really want to get these characters or not, because I mean, from the gameplay that I saw, I mean, it doesn't seem like any of the new characters are like over-the-top, broken, busted characters that you have to have. They're not going to skyrocket you to, like, the top of the PvP meta or anything like that. Obviously, they can make some decent plays depending on the teams that you sort of pair them with that could potentially, counter the meta and everything, but it's a demons on top kind of world, you know what I mean? They just don't want to let that team die for whatever reason, so it is a bit unfortunate, but yeah, these two characters are maybe not what they were hoping they would be on release. That's probably why they've already buffed them literally so shortly after they came out. But yeah, at least, I mean, as a light spender, you could probably grab a couple of costumes, maybe see if they're going to be good in the future. Obviously, if you're a collector or whatever, you probably want to grab them while they're available, because who knows if we'll ever even get a part 3 of AOT. I assume there's a possibility, but so far we have not gotten a third rerun, or like a third version of any collab so far. We've had KOF twice, we've had Slime twice, we've had AOT twice now, and then I don't know if they ever end up bringing any of them back, that would be a third time, but there's a couple of collabs that still don't have, their second time or whatever the case be there. So overall, I would say that unless you're just like really interested in the AOT characters or the IP, and you think you might be able to have fun with these characters, or you want to invest into the future of these units, to see where it kind of goes potentially with the future of the meta, you might be able to have them. It really sucks to say that these characters aren't really that good right now and could potentially be good in the future, because that just means that you're not going to be able to pull them in the future. So if they do end up skyrocketing to the front of the meta because all of a sudden this new character came out and they work perfectly with them or whatever, this banner's not going to be around anymore, and you're not going to be able to buy the characters. Once the banner leaves, you're not going to buy the costumes, like they're just unavailable. So it's one of these really stupid scenarios where you're kind of put in the position to where you're either forced to summon and spend money on the characters right now with them not looking great, or potentially miss out on being able to use them in the future if they do end up being good. So, I mean, most of the time, I would have to say with the collab characters in general, I mean, there a lot of the times the characters drop off very hard. I would say that, a decent amount of these collab characters are pretty much unusable for actual PvP and stuff like that at this point, and it just depends on how long they actually last. I would say this Rimuru has had pretty good success in the meta, and then maybe, I mean, I guess you could. I use Athena for Brawl, but that's about it. Amelia's okay at best. I would say the other ones are pretty bad. Reinhardt, if you have him like really high ult level, Naofumi can be okay, and then we've seen a little bit of success with Rudius lately with the Chaos PvP stuff. Galena's pretty good as well, but I don't know. A lot of these characters, you got to spend real money on them, and they don't last for very long. So obviously it's kind of nice to have them for when you need them in the future, or like a rare scenario comes out, but I would say at the end of the day, probably not worth it. So unless they end up doing some sort of extra buffs or anything like that in the future, obviously that could maybe change some opinions or whatever, but that is pretty much going to be it from me. Obviously, I've seen a lot of negativity around the collab. I don't really want to be negative about it, but it really doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's worth really investing into at the moment. So, I mean, if it ends up becoming good in the future, then, it's just unfortunate that they made it look so bad on release, but that's pretty much it. So, I mean, I don't know. If you have any cool, like, positive comments, or maybe you've played JP and you like the characters, whatever the case may be, let me know how your experience is, or if you're looking forward to the characters or whatever. But I I understand. I know that the characters are pretty mediocre. I get it. The old characters are basically still unusable. Really wish that they would have done some stuff with their actual cards, but it is what it is. It's not always a W, I guess. So either way, thank you guys so much for watching. I will be doing the news later on tonight, and I will be doing live summons later tomorrow night whenever the banner drops. So feel free to subscribe if you have not already, and stick around for some extra content and stuff like that. We'll definitely be messing around with all of the characters in the collab whenever they do drop on global. I have barely really I'm struggling to find content on any of the old units. Obviously, I think people are still sort of caught up trying to mess with the newer ones, and that's completely understandable, but I kind of want to see if I can find some scenarios where these characters could work. I've seen a couple of videos on Aaron, actually, and it is not good. So, either way, thanks for watching. Subscribe. I'll see you later.